The Dogma Podcast. Where my dog's at? Let's go!
How are you, Dr. Standifer?
Hello.
I hear you just fine. How are you, sir?
Blessed and highly favored. How you doing?
Indeed, you are. I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thanks for catching back up with me. I know it's been a bit much on you, and I really, really appreciate your time. I do.
Yes, sir.
I do. As we talked about, we want to talk about mental illness and the urban community. And I know your position is a little bit um, um, personal. I think that you've told me that you think that we're not, the Constitution is not there. We're not doing the things we need to be doing, like going to the doctors and getting the help we need to prevent some of these things, these mental illnesses that come upon us. So the onus of a lot of the responsibility from conversations that we've had before in the past is that a good assessment, or am I off the mark a little bit?
Well, closely, I am aware of the systems that are at play, and I teach African American history, and I speak on racism, and I speak on the isms that are present and that are barriers for us to gain access to certain mental health facilities and mental health resources. But I am shifting my mental to not placing sole blame. I do want us to start taking more responsibility for our access. Um, you know, for instance, one of the comments I've been to men's masterminds and the focus of being mental health. And one of my mastermind brothers, he was telling me about going to counseling, he's going to relationship counseling, marriage counseling.
Mhm.
Um, and only one of my mastermind brothers go. The other ones are saying, I don't really need that. I'm not really there. I don't really need counseling or
Yeah.
therapy or such. And I've been to therapy, I've been to counseling, and I see the benefits. I see the benefits of us going. But I do understand that there's a large portion of the population who just don't have access to them. There are barriers that prevent it. So if you're low income, you don't have access to mental health facilities. If you're low income, you can't take off of work to go see a therapist. You can't take off of work. You might not have transportation to get there. You might not have childcare to get there. You might not have adequate facilities in your neighborhoods. Um, but those of us who do have access to mental health facilities, um, I think I do. Yeah, this a thought just popped in my head. Those of us who do have access to mental health facilities, who are able, who have the resources to go, many of us might not feel like we need it because we've reached a certain level that, okay, we don't need mental health services. We've reached a plateau that we're good on that. Um, so
Do you mean like we actually do need these kind of services, and we in denial and say we don't? Is that what you're referring to?
a small percentage of the population, not wholly, not wholly.
Mm-hmm.
To me, in my personal opinion, I think everybody needs mental health services. Everybody, especially if you're in an
Touche.
urban, if you're in an urban community, you do. There's just certain forces that add B that we just don't know how to address, that we don't have access to, and we don't know how to deal with. So, um, I think everybody needs. I don't think everybody goes. I think some people don't go because of the stigmatism that, if you go see a therapist or if you go see a counselor, you're quote unquote crazy.
Right.
Um, and I think the other people don't have access to the facilities, don't have transportation, don't have the knowledge that the facilities exist. Um, aren't available at a young age. When you're a child and you're in need of mental health services,
Mm-hmm.
you need an adult to advocate for you. A child don't know how to advocate for themselves when they need services.
Right.
Somebody who's in need of mental health services, severe mental health services, they don't know how to advocate for themselves. They need somebody to advocate
But
for them to push
but
them to go.
but you're implying then that our parents, the parents of, say, children, because you're talking about somebody advocating for you, are not advocating for the children.
Um, I and I think I think it's more so a not advocate. For instance, one of the things I learned when I was going to school is that an uneducated parent is feels inferior to a teacher in a lot of cases.
Mm-hmm.
Uneducated parents, they go to a school to talk to a principal or talk to a teacher.
Sure.
They feel at a disadvantage because one person has a degree, one person might not have a degree. So they feel the need to just accept the advice or the recommendations of their teachers.
Mm-hmm.
That's one case. But most cases, parents would say, "Hey, school, my child is in need of services. I need you to provide services for my child." Um, and that I do see that case happen a lot. I see that case happens a lot where parents do advocate for their children.
They do.
If they do know,
They do. Because I personally have, my son is 34 years old. I had a set of twin boys that I had custody of and that were living with me. And they were a little peculiar, like their daddy. The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. And, just hyper, always getting into something, doing stuff they weren't supposed to be doing. And the social workers, the counselors, and then the social workers that intervened, they actually recommended Ritalin. I don't know if you know what that is for this young man. And I didn't even know what Ritalin was at the time, but I looked it up, obviously. And they were actually trying to give my son something that was going to actually do him more harm than good, and something that he could become addicted to, something that would progress into the point where if he didn't have the Ritalin, he wouldn't be, being able to behave or maintain.
Mm-hmm.
And when I found that out, I was like, we're talking about advocating for your kid. I was like, no, we're not giving him that. I know we just have to suffer through these pains and, try to correct him as best I possibly can. And now, he's been through some pains and perjuries in life, but now he's fine. So the Ritalin wasn't necessary, but look at the misdiagnosis stuff. And see, that's what I'm saying. The reason that I'm having this talking and asking for your perspective is because I feel that, and we're going to look at a couple of clips. I got one because you're a spoken word genius. So I got this little clip. I thought I'd amuse you because this boy, you may know something about him, but the clip is really good and it speaks to what we're talking about.
Being strong all the time took away our ability to speak about our weaknesses, our sadness, our mental illnesses. This silence is killing us. On top of that, we lack proper mental health care access and endure mistreatments by medical professionals who cannot relate to us in their practice. On top of that, we stigmatize mental illness to preserve this place of our strength, damaging ourselves, and among Black children observing a spike in suicide rates.
I remember from when we talk, and I do believe that, a lot of times we don't deal with mental illnesses when we say we're talking about inner city, certain income levels of, when I say we, that's what I'm talking about, because that's where I'm in, that's the context. So in the inner cities, like here in Atlanta, when I look on every corner is someone asking for something. I've started to do some video work because we're going to do some documentaries on homelessness and trying to find out, get some personal perspectives on what these people have to say or how did they got to this position, with people living in tents and so forth and so on. And there's a direct correlation between mental illness and this type of homelessness and this transitory type of living. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, isn't that some type of, because I know the people that have actually tried to help individuals, and I have too actually, that were homeless, and they reverted right back to where they had been saved from. So that was their norm. They couldn't be helped, but that's a mental issue to me. It's a learned behavior. But what do you say? I mean, you have programs, and I didn't even introduce you, but we'll talk about all that. You have programs that you developed and things in which all stem from a personal constitution, trying to teach youth at a young age personal constitution to make good choices, correct? So for us, in terms of our personal responsibilities and trying to help ourselves and even help others that would have these conditions, what do you suggest that we can do collectively, like as a community, starting from maybe our politicians, the healthcare communities, the nonprofits? What could we do collectively, you think, to address this issue? Because the issue being that in the inner cities, the lack of attention to mental illness is disturbing because it's causing a lot of deterioration of the African American population that I think could be salvaged if people could be addressed, if these illnesses could be addressed, more.
That's a
I know
tough one
that's
to
kind of
answer.
I know it's a broad statement, but just
Mhm.
give me some idea of what you
I
think
think the
would
main
be.
thing is I think the main thing is advocacy. When you create awareness and advocacy for the need for mental illness in our schools. I remember in our previous session you mentioned the school, a
Mhm.
low income school where they provided services for the students
Yeah.
to just kind of gauge where students are. And then
Mhm.
you just mentioned you have a case about your son being recommended Ritalin. And I don't have a lot of experience, but I do know a lot of people are recommended, prescribed Ritalin as a go-to
Mhm.
for certain symptoms, especially in young African American boys.
Mhm.
And I, you know, based on conversations and based on my small amount of research, I see that it creates almost a drug dependency. So, post Ritalin syndrome is drug dependency on things after Ritalin because Ritalin
Mhm.
has to end at a certain point,
Mhm.
but there's still a dependency for something to calm the nerves, to calm or to quote unquote fix the problem.
Mhm.
Um, and when you have that dependency, you have boys who grow up into men, yet children who grow up into adults with a mental illness from a misdiagnosis at a young age.
Exactly.
So there needs to be
Exactly.
advocacy and so parents can bridge the gap between parents and the schools because if you're a parent in the schools and you're looking to the school for services to help your child and the school recommends Ritalin. Not all parents have the know-how to stand up for their child and say, no, my child isn't taking Ritalin. That's not the solution. Not all parents
Mhm.
have that ability to do so.
Mhm.
Some parents are going to say, thank you for helping my child. Thank you for recommending this. My child needs Ritalin. When that might not be the case. That
Right.
might not be the case. So advocacy in the communities, in the households, especially at the schools, but making it available. I think COVID, with COVID, it made information more accessible. Prior to COVID, pre-COVID, that was a thing where you had to be there face to face. You had to show up to the school or show up to the centers to get information.
Mhm.
Now, we can do a Zoom session. And
Yeah.
Zoom sessions, they do a lot. I think they do got a lot of justice in bridging the gap,
Mhm.
and cutting out the need for transportation, cutting out the need for childcare. You can watch a recording of the sessions. You can make it innovative and fun, so it's not boring. Not
Yeah.
you know
Absolutely.
people have short attention spans. You can make it's all different kinds of ways. We can make memes now. Like we take advantage of the technology that we have access to. A lot of people are on TikTok. A lot of people educate on TikTok. A lot of people educate on Instagram. A lot of people educate on Facebook. Utilize these mediums to reach the masses and and translate it in a way where it's digestible to our parents and digestible to the community.
When you say it, what is it?
Um,
What is
advocacy,
advocacy?
advocacy, awareness,
Mhm.
um, erasing the stigmatism that comes with seeking mental health services. I know for me personally, before I started counseling, my mom passed away when I was 20, right before I turned 26. The man that raised me, he passed away. I went through a nasty divorce. And my boss slash mentor, he recommended me, hey, you need to go see a counselor, you need to talk to somebody. Don't just deal with it. Don't just hold all that stuff in.
Mm.
Um, if that if that hadn't happened, I would have never went.
Mm.
The idea hadn't even popped in my head to go see a counselor. It was just like I
You
could talk to
wait,
my friends
what do
about
you
it.
mean if he hadn't suggested it?
Yeah, yeah. If he hadn't suggested I go see
Mm.
a counselor, I never would have even considered going.
But
But
you were humble enough to go though.
well, yeah, humble enough to go, but it took somebody who I trusted. I trusted my mentor. He's
Ah.
not going to lead me down the right path, down the straight path.
Mhm.
Um, as opposed to if it was somebody else that I didn't know that I didn't have a relationship with and they recommended it, I probably would have, pushed it to the side, like,
Right.
I'm good on that. But it took somebody, people do business with people that they know, like, and trust.
That's right.
And, a mentor, when a mentor recommends you something and you know they want good for you, you'll digest the information a lot better than a stranger. I don't know you, you don't know me, from a can of paint. So it was easier for me to digest the information and go seek the counseling that I needed, because who would have known if I would have never had that person to talk to,
Mhm.
you know, it probably would have led to a darker place or a deeper depression. Um, yeah, so yeah, we need advocacy. We need to take the stigmatism off that therapy is perfectly okay to go to. It's nothing bad about going.
But it's not just about a counselor. I mean, that might be the, first point of reference, but isn't it more like a collective community effort, where, it has to be other resources that are available to maintain the person throughout their journey with this transition. So with advocacy, with the advocacy, how do we take the advocacy and best use it in a community?
It does take a level of diagnosis to see what specifics does a person need. You know, really might not be a cure all for all people, but really might be needed for certain people. You know, certain
Mm-hmm.
people, a small percentage of people might do need really. They might need medication. Some
Mm-hmm.
people might need a counselor or a therapist,
Mm-hmm.
or in my kids' school they have a support animal. A support animal might, all different kinds of different methods. I know that in the school that you mentioned, they had on a computer that the child can kind of gauge where they are, and
Mm-hmm.
it tracks the
The
data.
computer
And
speaks to and asks them how they're
mhm,
feeling and so forth and so on.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now these days these kids are very comfortable being in front of a
Excuse
screen.
me.
They're very comfortable. We wouldn't we can't even comprehend it because, as a parent, I'm like, too much screen time. Yeah, too much screen time. Let's limit the screen time, right? The kids literally are growing up in front of a screen or Zoom all day. They
That's
went through an
true.
era of COVID where school was literally 8 hours a day in front
That's
of a
true.
screen. Um, so it's so many different, now so many different remedies need to be explored, and as a teacher, I try to address audio, visual, touch. I try to address all the different styles of learning. And when it comes to seeking mental health services, we need to try to address all the different kinds of remedies for mental health conditions so we can find the right combination for each specific person.
Mhm. So it's tailored to individuals. Do you know the capacity of what we're talking about? And I think in large part, that's why it doesn't happen. Because if somebody has severe mental issues and history, that's uh like, I wouldn't say insurmountable, but that's a humongous a mountain to climb. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, you have to do exactly what you said and try to break down every element of what the cause is and the effects, and then kind of come up with a solution, a plan. That's difficult, is it
Mhm.
not, when you're dealing with people? Hey guys, I just wanted to stop by for a minute to ask for your subscription, ask you to subscribe, click the bell below. You'll get all of the notifications as we get new productions. We're looking forward to having some great stuff. We just secured a studio, and we're looking to do some live street audience interviews. We have a lot of stuff in store. So subscribe so you can get connected. Where my dog's at.
Very difficult because you might not know the root cause of the source. Something might have probably happened to this person when they were, a child. That's guiding their behaviors and well into adulthood. And it's hard to pinpoint that if a person doesn't dig deep to figure out, hey, this happened. I met a young lady. She is terribly, terribly, terribly afraid of balloons. Like, you can't bring a balloon around her. She's terribly afraid of balloons.
Mhm.
I'm like, it's just a balloon. After speaking with her mama, she popped a balloon when she was a child, and that frightened her so bad that
Traumatized her for life.
well into adulthood, she can't be around balloons. And that small, minute a balloon popping, she can't a deep phobia of balloons. That's the same thing with mental health issues. Something might happen to this person when well into childhood that they're not even aware of. And now they can't function in the area. They can't function in a certain space. And how do you pinpoint that? How do you go to that root cause? So
It's a
yeah.
it's a scary thing too. Um, we have the case here where the newscaster, just about a month ago, I mean, not a month ago, but a week ago, if it was that long, 26 or 29 years old, as I read, she committed suicide. And her family said she was just the happiest person in the world, happy-go-lucky,
Mhm,
but nobody
mhm,
knew that because she had reached a level of, success, and it looked like everything was hunky-dory, and yet and still she, would take her life at such a young age and have
mhm.
achieved so much success, and so you never know what's going on, for as I hear us talk, for the people that are adults and are older and kind of setting their ways in their transitions and wherever their life is, it's kind of, we just have to help as we can. But the ones that we can help for certainly are the people that you target, your target group, which are the youngsters, and start there. So hopefully it never gets to, the plight of where a lot of our young, especially African American men are, with this lack of mental care, mental health
My
care.
quote, one of my favorite quotes, it's better to build strong boys and girls than to repair broken men and women. That's one of my favorite quotes.
Yeah, and
And
that's
I'm
a
an
worthwhile
advocate for the
quote.
youth. Hmm.
Yeah, for the youth. And so, I guess for us, even a stronger case is what amount of effort do we want to put into helping our youth, because we don't want them to get to this degree um, of any type of mental issues without having the proper support so that they can be strong men and women. And your project is one of those projects that um, is doing just that. Tell us a little bit about your Rubik's Cube project that you recently started.
So it's called Life is like a Rubik's Cube. And the basis of it is goal setting and confidence building. So I believe strongly, wholeheartedly believe that the foundation for success is confidence. I can take
Mm,
a straight A student right now, but if they don't have confidence, I show you a failure every single time.
sure.
But you give me somebody with some confidence, I can work with that. I can show you, I can show you a success story. And a lot of young people lack confidence. They lack confidence. My daughter and my son, I use them as an example. They got mine. I see them up close and personal. But one of the main things I make sure I do is build up their self esteem, their belief in themselves. I
Hmm.
praise them all the time. And I push them so they can see wins, so they know, they know they're geniuses. Because I say it all the time, but also I give them opportunities to prove to themselves they're geniuses. And a lot of our young people need those opportunities. So I teach young kids how to solve Rubik's Cube because young people associate, well, most people associate solving a Rubik's Cube with being a genius. If you can solve a Rubik's Cube, you're a genius. So I teach people how to solve Rubik's Cubes, and I placebo themselves into believing that to tap into their geniusness.
I'm
So now,
laughing. I'm laughing because that's one of the hardest things in the world for me. And doesn't your daughter, can she? I've seen it.
she
I know she can. She
She
can
learned how to
solve
solve
Rubik's.
she learned how to solve when she was 6 years old.
That's
Um,
amazing,
my
man.
son is my son is 5. I'll be teaching him. Shit. I think he's ready now. I was waiting to 6, but I think he's ready now. He's in the kindergarten, 5 years
Mhm.
old. He knows all the multiplication tables. And we were working on orders and operations right now. I'm like, wow, man, you're 5 years old. You're in the kindergarten. You don't even understand how amazing this is that you're doing this. He's ready now. He's ready too now. So yeah.
Oh man, is this the type of this training that you do at home for your children? Is this the type of training that you present in your with your program, the Rubik's Cube program?
This is the first time that I'm gonna mention this publicly. The first time I mention this publicly.
Okay.
A lot of people ask me tips about what I do with my children. Ayana's she's in third grade. She's doing pre-calculus and algebra and geometry. She's in third grade. So a lot of people ask me what I do. So I have made the decision. I'm going to launch. My life is like a Rubik's Cube Junior session. It's going to be called Unlocking the Natural Genius in Our Children. So I'm going to present workshops on how we can unlock the natural genius in our children. And the foundation is belief. It's belief.
Hmm.
We got to get our kids believing in themselves, confidence. And once they start to get confident, they are more inclined to take chances and prove to themselves that they're geniuses. So, yeah, I'm going to launch a service
Is
called
is is there is there a wholeness in, because you're actually raising your children, and
Mhm.
I know in large part, I mean really having control of aspects of their life and making sure that they're equipped. I mean, I know that for a fact. So, but so what I'm saying is that how we can prevent this type of thing? This, I mean, you can't some mental illnesses you just can't prevent. I mean, I guess you
Mhm.
have mental illness because you, for whatever reason, it can be biological, I imagine. But the mental illness, like for the the different types of illnesses that the soldiers have, or the different types of illnesses that now that we're finding out the youngsters have, and we don't even know it. So, are you saying that if that you believe that a good tactic is to pour that type of concentration into your children so that it has a benefit, you think, a mental health benefit
I
that,
wholeheartedly think that it would address a lot of the issues that we have with our youth.
yeah,
Not all of them, because
yeah,
I've heard stories of soldiers coming home, after seeing so much bloodshed,
mhm,
and they're dealing with issues that that was developed as an adult, that was developed as in the battle. But when it comes to our kids, I think we need to figure out what our kids' strengths are. There's a metaphor that we judge fish on how well they fly or how well they climb trees, and we judge birds on how well they swim. And what we need to focus on is putting birds in the air, fish in the water, monkeys in the trees. We need to focus on putting people in their in their area of strength, in their strong suits. So I give my kids a lot of opportunities to try things and fail at things, and I can make them, hey, I'm gonna love you regardless if you fail. I don't care about failing. I just want you to try. And when they find something that they're passionate about, that they're good at, that's what we pursue. I don't care what it is. I just want them to find what they're passionate about. And that's what, no, we got this cookie cutter approach. We think all our boys should be athletes. All our boys should be football players and
true,
basketball players.
indeed, indeed, indeed,
And some of our boys are skateboarders. Some of them are
right,
musicians. Some of them
right,
are writers. Find what they're talented at
right,
and nurture those skills. And that would develop their confidence. And I think they they won't find depression in something that they're good at. They
hmm,
won't find depression in something that they're talented at. So
hmm. I agree. I agree. It's a direct correlation. And I'm glad we're going there because we're talking about mental illness, but we have to go back to root causes. And once something gets to the point where, it's psychotic, people have been homeless or um, they've been on medications for 30 years or whatever the case may be, it's kind of late. I mean, we can do what we can do, but I guess if I were to ask you, and I guess what I'd ask you was, what would your remedy be? And I guess your remedies be go back and catch the youngsters before they get to that point,
mhm.
so that you can instill stuff in them to keep that from happening. Is that what you're simply put? That's what you're saying. And
That's
how?
that everybody has their fight. That's my fight. I think
Mhm,
there is a fight
mhm,
to address to address adults. There's a fight specifically for men, specifically for women, specifically for adults. Um my heart, my passion. Man, I cry when I see kids doing things that they thought they couldn't do. Oh man,
mhm,
that's a joyous moment for me. So that's
mhm.
my fight. And I think if we get more people in the fight for their cause, then we'll be a better place. The world will be a way a better place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to put the links below into everything that you're doing, to your website, your program, and all of that stuff, some contact information for you so that some people, as this moves forward, anybody want to contact you, they can. Is that okay with you?
That's perfectly okay. Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
no, for sure. And again, Rubik's Cube, if anybody wanted to find out more about your program, we're going to put the links down, but where would they go?
Um, I am working on social media presence, but Facebook, Life is like a Rubik's Cube, Instagram, Life is like a Rubik's Cube. My website is Lilarc. It's the acronym for Life is like a Rubik's Cube, LILARC.com.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so
And
yeah.
we'll put all that stuff down in the description so people can have access to it as well. Listen, man, I'm not going to keep you because I know it's late. And I do appreciate you for coming on. I really do. Dr. Derrick Standifer. a recent doctorate grad from FAMU.
My
And
heart is full.
yeah, it certainly is. And you're developing all these programs, being the great dad that you are, man, getting this education. I'm just super, super proud of you. And I know you get ready to do big things. So thanks for coming on. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your little insight on, what you think we can do. And I guess to sum it all up is we start reaching back for our youth and try to alleviate some of these things before they get to this point. Is that right?
Thank you for your mission. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your leadership. Greatly appreciate it, good sir. Thank you for being an advocate. Yeah. I appreciate that more than I love people not just talk about things, people actually taking action and doing things. So thank you for that.
I'll do what I can. Thanks a lot, Derrick. We'll
Yes, sir.
talk to you soon.
Yes,
Take
sir. Be
care.
great. Have a good one, sir.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.